Do you hear that? That's the sound of $8,000 in damage.
All right, so today on Startup Check, I haven't been able to do a lot because my Nissan Leaf has been broken. And also, I've been framing this massive garage addition. This garage is gonna be sweet. When it's all done, I've got 12-foot opening, 22-foot cathedral ceiling, and plenty of space to work on building an airplane, which is gonna be awesome. But today's project is this 2013 Nissan Leaf that had a control arm brake, so the wheel was falling off basically. And then when they went to tow it, they broke the axle and also broke the gearbox potentially. So since they had me sign something that said I wouldn't sue them because I had them tow it on a flatbed because nobody else was willing to come with the correct type of tow truck. You need a lift tow truck, a wheeled one that lifts your wheels up. Either way, nobody could come. So it broke and now I got it home and I got to fix it. So I'm not super excited about having to fix this, but this is a good opportunity because while there's lots of videos out there showing how to replace the gearbox, nobody actually digs into a broken one. They dig into either working ones or the broken ones they just toss out and didn't actually dig into problems with them. So I'm going to actually rip this open and see what's broken, can I fix it, and if not, at least replace it. So we'll find out. So I won't bore you with a ton of details, but essentially we need to disconnect this battery to get to the bolts down below, and then we need to remove each axle, disconnect the main high voltage battery. So we're gonna jack the car up, pull off the wheel, remove the axle, and then basically drop the gearbox. The process for doing all this is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of videos online, so I'm not really going to go into that. Instead, I'll save you guys that and we'll check out the gearbox together once I get it open. I have a lot of metal. In fact, that's a bad sign. When you pull a plug and a transmission, you don't want to see this much metal, specifically teeth like this. I'm going to guess that this gearbox is shot. But let's pull it apart and find out for sure. Sorry, I thought I was doing video. It turns out I was doing time lapse, but this is what I want to show you guys. I found the damaged tooth. Everything else looks fine except for this one tooth right here has got sections missing. And I don't know how that happened and if there's any others, to be fair. So, I mean, worst case scenario is it stops working. Best case scenario, I can get the car working again without any other more damaged teeth. I'm thinking maybe I can just remove this and weld some more on there and grind and polish it up and be good to go. Seems about right. Let's grab my hammer. I think it needs a little bit more. Luckily I got a nail. One of these will work. this guy. Okay. This guy has gotten popped out. Alrighty. Which means these should fall out. And this guy. Alrighty. Good time to inspect everything. Everything here looks okay. Actually, it looks really good for 120,000. And this guy just has this one bad one. Ooh, looks so ugly. We'll just weld some new onto that. Let's go weld this bad boy. Clean this guy up with some soap. That thing exploded. So I got this filled in. Turned out I was out of cover for gas, which stinks because now I've got this material on here and it's not so pretty looking, but we'll file it down and see if we notice any major seams. I couldn't believe how at such a low current this material just blasted away. Like, it melted so incredibly quickly. It makes me wonder if this wasn't even hardened, or I don't know what the deal is. But either way, let's file it down and see how it goes. Whew, this thing's hot. Flattening this. If you've never watched the old 16mm video on, or I guess film on how to file, I highly suggest it. I had no idea the proper way to file until I watched that. And so cross cut, you use pressure in both directions. And then it's for coarse work. All right, getting closer. Oh, this is hard. I don't want to ruin the other teeth. I just want... It's not quite there yet. I got to do some more material removing on that side, but this is way better looking than it was. Okay, we'll remove some more there too. All right. Maybe I'll get that part real quick. Okay, this is one of those better is the enemy of good scenarios. It's going to be a lot easier to do this once versus if I go too deep, I'm going to regret it. Okay, so we're getting a lot closer here. This side, it's looking like it's almost done. The face looks really good. The top's a little thick. Can get brought down a bit. If anything, it looks like I'm a little shallow on the side here. The material isn't thick enough. I don't know whether or not I want to go in and weld more. I have more gas, so it might be worth it. I was out of cover gas. So let's swap the tank and hit that a bit more with some cover gas and clean up the sides a bit. Add a little more material. It's annoying, but I want to do a good job. It's we're going to be driving this thing. I don't want it to grenade in the middle of the highway. I'm going to have to take my camera off because I don't want to destroy my lens. Because I'm sure welding is not what this sensor was designed to look at. Alright, so I got the gear welded. So big blob on there, but with cover gas now it's actually pretty continuous. So if you feel like your torch is ever just blowing through material, like it's, you know, melting the metal way too easy even with low current, probably your cover gas has run out. So that's what I learned today. And once I had the cover gas on there, I had to turn the amperage up from like 15 amps all the way up to about 60 to get this thing to actually pool nicely. Definitely, I feel like it's a little bit better penetrating now that I had the cover gas on there. And it was actually pooling. It's looking good. Just got to do a little bit more removal. Close. Okay, so that's starting to look like any other tooth, which is pretty cool. I think it turned out okay. The material is seamless enough for me, and it looks pretty dang close to the others. So I think it's going to work, and it's probably just going to mesh in and be fine. So I'm pretty happy. We're going to put the whole thing back together the way we took it apart, clean up everything best we can, flush it out, refill it with gearbox oil, and be good to go. To replace the gasket that was on this gearbox, I've got this Permatex gear oil gasket maker. So it's supposed to, I guess, resist ATF a bit better than most. We'll see. Either way, it's gray, so hopefully it's the same stuff that you originally used, which was gray. So we're going to put a really thin bead around this guy. Basically
around the whole thing, around each hole, stick it together, make it just a little bit loose. So this thing is back together. Now we're just going to put all these bolts in finger tight according to the gasket sealer guide. There is a lot of them. This guy is all finger tight. And, oh, I didn't tell anyone. I found a mud dauber hornet nest on the top of this and it freaked me out completely. But got rid of it. I don't know how it formed there. This thing's been stored in the garage, but either way, it's always interesting what you find. All right, so this guy's doing its 1 hour wait. We're gonna clean up all this, get it nice and clean and ready to get remounted. It looks like it's got a drain seep hole here for some oil too. Either way, I've got this horribly dangerous silicone gasket remover, which is probably just MEK or something terrible. Either way, we'll clean up the face of this with this guy. It smells good though. I'm sure it's not good for me. So this is new territory with reusing a gearbox from a Nissan Leaf. Usually people just replace it. So I'm going to do a pattern where I essentially do kind of like a modified star pattern. I'll do one here, and then I'll do one here, and then one here, and then kind of shift that pattern all the way around. These are kind of smaller bolts. I'm going to do 18 foot-pounds per bolt, and we'll start with that and see how things look. Okay, so they're all tightened up. We're gonna let it sit for 24 hours and then refill it with fluid. This is the old axle. Let's measure some stuff on it. Okay, I figured out why I thought my gearbox was broken when it wasn't. Here is the old axle, here is the new axle, and if you look, this is larger than this spline. So this slid in, and I thought it sounded okay, and it kind of felt like it engaged, but it was just small enough to where all the teeth started slipping. And all the teeth starting to slip sounded like grinding. The gearbox is back in. I got all the bolts connected. We still got to open up that plug over there and fill it with ATF fluid until it drains out, and then seal it up. I got another hour or two to wait before it's been 24 hours. And still got to insert the drive shaft there the rest of the way. But this thing is almost all back together again. So we'll fill it up, and then we'll get the other correct axle in place with the 27 splines instead of 25 this time. So I feel like a bit of a goofball not knowing that this car was not made in the US. Thought it was made in Japan because the 2011 and 2012 was. I didn't think they had US manufacturing so soon. But apparently this car was made in Smyrna, Tennessee. So it had the 27 spline instead of the 25 spline drive shaft, because I guess Americans have a heavier foot. I don't really know. Either way, that was my mistake. I ordered the wrong drive shaft. Wasn't Rock Auto's fault. And
oh well. Either way, not a big deal. Luckily, they were very inexpensive. I think my mistake was $60 or something like that. So I'll get the new drive shaft in and then we'll test this thing out.
The bottom panel of the Leaf always ends up scraping on the street near me. And so instead of having to buy a new one of these, which is like hundreds of dollars for something so light and foamy, I'm actually just going to use a bunch of this 3M spray contact adhesive and some regular contact cement. And I'm just going to repair the one that I got because it doesn't make any sense to me to do it otherwise. So I've got this sweet, reusable, massive grocery bag sort of material that was left over from scuba diving BCID I bought. And so I'm going to use that to glue on. So either way, let's get going. Ooh, that's interesting. I love this stuff. The spray pattern is so cool. You just let it get tacky for a couple minutes and then you stick it on, rub out all the wrinkles. Although I would highly suggest you do it in a ventilated area. It's not very good for you. Contains dimethyl ether, dimethyl acetate, trade secrets, cyclohexane, that sounds yummy, difluoroethane, pentane. Vapors may cause flash fire. We'll let that side harden up. We'll work on this side. So one super annoying thing is when they towed the car and put it on a flatbed and didn't put a block under it, they totally jacked up this trim plate and pushed the door frame, and they eliminated the gap on the door here. So this door was rubbing like crazy. And so I opened the door up all the way and hooked a cam strap onto it and then just started winching it against another car I had until it pulled the whole thing out and made enough of a gap to where it wasn't rubbing on the door anymore. They really screwed up all the seam on the bottom because they didn't use jack points at all. I don't know if you can see that, but it is just messed up. Let's get this bad boy back on. Of course, every time I want to do something is when it is snowing out. Great. Okay. I don't hear grinding. It's pretty good. All right. Let's do a turn and see if that differential tooth breaks off. Sounds fine to me. So a few takeaways from that project. One, I wish I knew ahead of time that there was 2 different size drive shafts for the early Japanese versions versus the later 2013 US versions of the Nissan Leaf. If you didn't know that, you know that now. I definitely learned the hard way. Oh well. 2, if you are welding, make sure your cover tank is not empty. So my argon tank was empty, and so I ended up having to weld my gear twice to get good penetration and a good weld. The filing of the tooth down to size looked great. There's some question about if it hardened tooth is going to be, or not hardened tooth rather, because it's, you know, I didn't heat the whole thing up and quench it in oil and then put it in, you know, an oven, all that to harden it. If it's going to be a problem, I don't think it will be a problem. The tooth was brittle before and it chipped off, which now if it's softer, probably it's going to be more malleable, and so it might wear away, but it's probably just going to kind of malleably shape itself to the next tooth that's rubbing against it and end up looking like a tooth normally after a while.
So I'm not too worried about it. I was going to run the gearbox like normal until I thought I had broke it, and it would have been in there anyways. Now the whole thing has new oil, and so that's a much better spot than it was. We'll find out. Either way, worst case scenario, that tooth wears down and I'm in the old spot I was, eventually get a new gearbox. But I saved, $5,000 basically on not having Nissan install a new gearbox, on not having them replace the axle, on not having them replace the control arm. I mean, that'd be another $2,000 for those two last ones. And then they did destroy my door frame area when they towed the car incorrectly, which was a huge bummer because now I gotta, I guess, it's not dent, but I've got to straighten that section of the panelings. That way when you open the door, it doesn't rub, which is super annoying. So if you ever have your control arm break on your Leaf and the first guy comes and tries to tow it without using a block or an actual wheel lift tow truck, tell them no. Luckily I'm handy, no big deal. So we'll see how it holds up. I'm sure it'll be fine. I eventually want to take this and mount it into a BMW Z3 with a new controller on the top from one of the new Leafs so I can get a lot more horsepower out of it. And we'll see how that goes. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Oh, look at the wheel. Oh, wait.
Here, hold up.
Hold on, hold on.